So it starts in the castle, and it's pretty rough. Sandra's tied up, and she's been beaten so badly that you can barely recognize her. The princess is holding a whip, and she's absolutely furious. She calls Sandra useless and demands to know why she didn't come to save her when Raoul had her captive. Sandra tries to apologize, but the princess doesn't care. She just keeps whipping her, saying that her apology means nothing. The princess is losing it. She's been stuck in the castle ever since that incident, unable to do anything she used to do. Can't leave, can't kill, can't even live the life she used to. Then she says something chilling. If Sandra can't die, she should just keep squealing. But what does she mean by can't die? That part really makes you think. After what feels like forever, the princess finally orders the guards to keep torturing Sandra. Now, I almost wanted to feel sorry for Sandra, but then I remember. This is the same woman who led the knights to capture Raoul, who destroyed his village, skewered innocent women and children, and killed Raoul's pregnant sister. Honestly, I just can't feel bad for her. She's getting exactly what she deserves. One of the guards mentions that it must be Raoul's magic keeping Sandra alive because they tried to decapitate her, but their blade just wouldn't reach her. Raoul must have known the princess would try to kill Sandra, so he put a spell on her to make sure she wouldn't die, no matter what. Bro's basically saying, "Ain't no one gonna kill you but me." The princess orders the knights to find Raoul immediately. No, she wants them to kill him the second they see him and bring her his head. Meanwhile, in the forest, a knight is racing to deliver a message to the one guy strong enough to fight Raoul. But he gets ambushed by a group of goblins. He's in a hurry, so he's ready to deal with them as fast as possible. But then, out of nowhere, a goblin king shows up and attacks him. Just when things are looking bad, a man swoops in and blocks the attack right of time. The knight is shocked as the man quickly wipes out the entire pack of goblins, including the goblin king. The knight, amazed at how fast the man handled everything, says the man is truly worthy of his title as the country's strongest swordsman. This man is truly an angel, is what I'd like to say, but there's something off about that creepy smile of his. I have a feeling this guy isn't as angelic as he seems. The next day, Mr. Strongest Swordsman is seen having a meal with his family, his wife and 2 sons, Connie and Adam. He tells his sons that he'll be leaving for the royal capital the next day. One of them asks if he's going to hunt down the resurrected hero, Raoul, to which he answers yes. This amazes his sons, and one of them actually says that he should kill the hero in the most merciless way possible. Man, what have you been teaching these kids? One of the boys adds that he would have gone with his father if this whole thing had happened 6 months from now. But the other one corrects him, saying it's actually a year from now. The man then tells one of his sons, Connie, apparently, that he'll bring him a new toy on his way back from the royal capital, so he should focus on training with his brother. The mother, who's looking fine as hell, then comments that he's been too soft on Connie. A butler then asks the man what should be done for the messenger, who was sent by the royal capital's meal. But another butler quickly steps in and apologizes, saying the first guy just started working recently. The man then casually dismisses the butlers, and they both withdraw. Just then, a maid walks in with the day's main dish, and the man gets all excited. She opens it, and the aroma fills the room, but the man comments that there's nothing better than having this before a battle. His sons chime in, saying it looks delicious and that they'd like to have some too. But then he tells his sons they'd have to hunt their own game from now on, since he just hunted this today. Hunted it today? The only thing they showed us he did today was kill some goblins and save the knight who was the messenger from the royal capital. Wait, no. No. Don't tell me. No. He takes a bite that it's scrumptious and has the taste of victory, and then thanks the messenger for all his hard work. The next day, he sets off, with his sons yelling at him to bring back the hero's head. Seriously, what the hell is wrong with this family? Then one of the boys tells the other that they need to start practicing hunting with a toy. Next thing we see is a splash of blood, and one of the boys comments that it's too noisy, to which the younger boy says it's because he's squeezing its throat. He then says their father is bringing them a new monster, so they no longer need this kobold. The poor kobold tries to fight back, and the younger boy tells his brother to hurry up and kill it. The kobold tries to run away, but the elder boy mocks it for thinking it could outrun them. He casts a spell, hits the kobold, and leaves it at death's door. The two boys move closer, with the elder boy ready to finish it off. But then they hear someone behind them. It's none other than our boy Raoul, who says their game looks fun and that he'd also like to join them. Sometime later, Raoul is enjoying the peaceful weather when one of the boys yells at him, demanding he untie them immediately, saying their father won't forgive him for tying them down. Oh, by the way, their father, who's known as the strongest swordsman, is called General Brown. But Raoul just says, if you're that energetic, how about you dig holes with these guys? As he points to some of General Brown's workers who are busy digging. He then says he's going to give the boys a special duty afterward, so they should just sit quietly for now. Just then, one of the workers signals that he's found what they were looking for. And what did he find? Buried bones. Not animal bones, human bones. So if you had any doubts that the messenger from earlier was the main dish, well, here's your proof. And if you're still not convinced, then get this. Raoul then says the worker who found this pile of bones is in the lead in their bone digging game. The man tries to deny it, saying this was the only pile, but our boy Raoul isn't buying it, and he won't have any of his excuses. Raoul asks the man how many people they've killed so far, and just then a maid signals that she's found another pile. Wait a second, isn't that the messenger's head? Seeing as this pile looks fresh, Raoul asks the man if General Brown ate any meat yesterday. The man tries to deny it again, but Raoul's already told him not to lie. So Raoul snaps his neck, killing him on the spot. Raoul then reveals he's fully aware that the workers all made money by skewering people and cleaning up afterward. Well, it's no surprise that the servants are just as rotten as their master. One of the boys then says Raoul won't be so cocky once their father returns and sends him to the underworld. But Raoul calmly responds that he's already called their father back home and that he'll be back soon enough. Meanwhile, someone's watching this whole scene from afar. It's the general's wife. She readies her bow and arrow, which is coated with a poison strong enough to instantly kill a goblin king. She even mentions that it's been decided Raoul would be tonight's main dish. You know, I was gonna ask for your number, but never mind. She fires the arrow, and her sons, who've already noticed her, think it's over. They won't even need to wait for their father to defeat Raoul. But Raoul just smiles and says it's time to untie the boys. As the poisoned arrow is about to hit Raoul, without even looking, he uses his magic to send it right back in the direction of the general's wife. So ironic, being killed by the poisoned arrow you shot yourself. The boys call out to their mother as she struggles in pain. Damn, so this is what would have happened if that arrow had hit Raoul. Dang girl. She eventually dies, and Raoul announces it's time for the boys to fulfill their duties before their father comes home. Meanwhile, on the way to the royal capital, General Brown and his troops stop for the day. Suddenly, one of them cries out like he's seen a ghost. Well, guess what? He did see a ghost. It's the ghost of the messenger they killed the previous day. The ghost tells General Brown to go back home because the hero and his children are waiting for him. While waiting for the general to return, Raoul muses about how time flies when you have a fulfilling day. He also remarks on the convenience of dark magic, which allows him to see a person's past. He uses this ability on the corpses of all the workers and finds their thoughts disturbingly twisted. I mean, look at these people. Humans are truly dark, aren't they? Raoul reflects on how he risked his life to protect these weaklings from the Demon King, believing they were just innocent commoners with simple jobs. Little did he know, these people were even worse than the Demon King himself. Just then, our main guest, General Brown, arrives, burning with fury. Raoul casually comments that the general's even earlier than he expected, but still welcomes him home with open arms. Well, not just his arms, his wife's also hanging from the tree behind him. But this wasn't Raoul's doing. It was the general's son's masterpiece, the special task Raoul had assigned them. The general, now seething with rage, demands to know where his sons are. Raoul tells him to calm down, but the general's far from calm. He swings his sword at Raoul, who effortlessly dodges each strike. The general keeps swinging as he demands to know where his sons are. Raoul, unfazed, blocks the general's sword with his bare hand. He tells the general that his sons are fine, but more importantly, doesn't this scene, his wife hanging from a tree, look familiar? Just like what happened to his hometown, Bade Village. Quick recap. Many years ago in Bade Village, Raul and his sister were just kids, living happily with their mom. This happiness could have lasted forever. One day, while playing outside the village with his sister, their uncle suddenly appeared, brutally wounded. The village was under attack. When they rushed back, the entire village was on fire, and his mother was hanging from a tree, like so. Just then, General Brown arrived with his troops, claiming he heard demons were attacking and that he was there as backup. But it was too late. The deed was already done. Seeing everything he held dear burned to the ground, Raul's resentment awakened the hero's powers that had been bestowed upon him. Seeing this, the general apologized for not making it in time to stop the demons and urged Raul to come with him to the castle to train and defeat them. Foolishly, Raul followed him to the castle and began training in the royal capital as a hero, completely unaware that this was all part of their plan. He was convinced the demons were to blame, so he trained relentlessly with the sole purpose of exterminating them. I'm starting to think the actual demons didn't do anything, and the general then confessed that it was all his doing. He was the one who burned down Raul's village, under the king's orders, and he admits that doing so was exhilarating. But there was one thing he didn't like. He wasn't able to kill Raul, even though he was the strongest in the kingdom. He then tells Raul how he killed his mother. She was covering for a kid who was on the verge of dying, pleading with the general not to kill the child, but to take her instead. So what did he do? He cooked her right in front of the boy, and he admits she was finger-licking good. But Raul already knew all this thanks to his black magic, so he wasn't even the least bit surprised. That's why he was able to reproduce what happened, hanging the general's wife the same way the general hanged his mother. He then tells the general to stop claiming to be the strongest because, let's face it, he clearly isn't. But the general, arrogant as ever, claims that Raul is only confident because of his hero title, insisting there's no way Raul could match someone as strong as him. Seeing as the general still thinks, "I'm strong, and I'm the strongest," Raul decides it's time to break those words apart. Raul casually informs the general that his sons are in the dungeon, and he'll have a chance to save them, if he can defeat him. The general, filled with arrogance, accepts the challenge, boasting that after he's done, he and his sons will feast on Raul's flesh. The fight begins with the general causing a massive explosion. Raul remarks that the blast scattered the bodies of the workers he'd gathered in one spot. Now they're all over the place. The general swings his sword wildly, but Raul just effortlessly dodges each attack. Raul's not even trying, just toying with the general at this point. Raul then comments, almost amused, that there's no way the general could hit him with such weak attacks. But now, it's his turn. As he draws out his sword, it's like he's summoning it from the depths of hell. Raul takes a seemingly light swing at the general, who mocks the weak stroke. But as soon as Raul's sword touches the general's, its immense weight pins the general down. Raul, with a smirk, tells the general to do his best. Desperate and furious, the general unleashes a powerful flame attack, engulfing Raul in a raging inferno. "Burn in hell," the general roars. But Raul's already been to hell and back. This kind of attack, it's just not gonna cut it. Raul charges at the general, unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks that the general barely manages to keep up with. Exhausted and breathless, the general struggles, prompting Raul to suggest they end it. Undeterred, the general charges at Raul, declaring not to underestimate him. Raul effortlessly repels the attack, sending the general flying. Now on the ground, bleeding from his mouth, the general refuses to admit defeat. Raul, amused by the general's persistence despite his severe beating, tells him to try his best and reach his sword. As the general desperately tries to grasp it, Raul kicks him in the gut, sending him flying once more. Raul mocks the general's futile efforts, encouraging him to try again. With a smirk, he watches as the general struggles to reach his sword, only to be kicked away every time. Raul's enjoyment is palpable, and he decides it's time for dinner. The general, still trying to reach his sword, wonders why he can't defeat Raul despite being the so-called strongest. Raul coldly tells him to accept reality, then uses magic to destroy the general's sword into 1,000,000 pieces. Shocked, the general looks on as Raul declares that he has lost to a mere brat. Raul then says, Now that you have no sword, you won't be needing these anymore. Rawl uses magic to sever the general's hands, then grins as he announces, "I've prepared a very special dinner, and I'm sure you'll love it too. But how's dinner supposed to be served when you've got no hands?" I'm excited for the dinner, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. If you're also excited, comment "dinner time" in the comment section. Later, the general wakes up in the dining hall, immobilized by Rawl's magic. Rawl comments with a smirk that he didn't expect the general to pass out from the pain. Next to the general are his two sons, looking dazed and drugged. The general, horrified, calls out to his sons but gets no response. Desperate, he asks Rawl what he's done to them. Rawl casually reveals, "I just borrowed a page from your playbook. The drug I used was made by your wife's family, found in the cellar where I planned to tie up your sons." While Rawl was searching for a place to tie up the general's sons, he discovered other prisoners in a cell who were also drugged. Using dark magic, Rawl traced the drug back to the general's wife. Initially planning to keep the sons locked up, Rawl found a bottle of the drug and decided, "You know what? I've got a better idea." The general's wife's family was renowned for their healing skills, so Rawl planned to visit them next. Now, the iron plate is hot, signaling that it's time for dinner. Rawl refers to his ingredients as 2 lambs and a bull. While the manga didn't explicitly show who these were, it's implied that they are the general's wife and sons, as the general himself wouldn't be affected if served a worker. First, a shoulder roast, Rawl says, slicing off part of the shoulder while the general screams for him to stop. After seasoning the meat, he places it on a plate. Since the general has no hands, Rawl uses magic to force his mouth open and feed him the meal. Rawl then moves on to the thigh, ribs, and tongue, serving a full course of sheep for the special dinner. Next, it's the son's turn, and he's served the bull. Rawl starts with the shoulder, cooks it, and presents it to the son, who eats it with visible pleasure. The general pleads for mercy, asking Rawl to spare him and his elder son, the heir. Rawl reminded the general that this was how his mother pleaded for the child's life. He then tells the general to try and remember everything he did to his mother's body because he'll do the exact same thing to the general. Call me crazy, but the sound of the general's scream is music to my ear. Later, Rawl comments that the show is over now, that they're all dead. Now, it's time to move on to the next prey. I'd say the show has just begun. What do you think? Should I make the third part? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video as much as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I release another part or a new series. That's all for now. Peace. Right after Rawl crashes the princess's parade, he heads to the church, the same place where he last saw his sister before she was killed. He goes inside and drops a bouquet of flowers as a final sign of respect. Then he turns around and leaves the church. But before we go on, who the heck is this fatty? Rawl stands in front of the church, sets it on fire, and just watches as it burns to the ground. But as the flames consume the church, he suddenly sees the spirit of his dead sister in the middle of the fire. This makes him burst into laughter, because honestly, keeping a sane mind is toxic when you're out for revenge. So, he tells her everything. He tells her how the royal capital is in chaos and the people are on the brink of rebelling after discovering the truth. Several healers are working on Victoria, but her belly is ruined, which means her plan to conceive an heir and take over the throne is completely destroyed. He's also taken care of the grand priest who sold her out. That was the fatty we saw earlier. So to lay it out, maybe the princess didn't even know where Rawl's sister was, and she might have been safe if the grand priest hadn't betrayed her. His name was Gustav, and he lived in a mansion he got by squeezing money out of innocent believers. When he realized Rawl was still alive, he was shocked. And after Rawl exposed all of his crimes in a very satisfying way, Gustav started begging for his life, saying he'd give Rawl anything he wanted. Money, women, whatever. But come on, dude, you sold out his pregnant sister. Do you really think you can buy your way out of this with money? Yeah, I don't think so. And Rawl definitely doesn't either. After Gustav finished begging, Rawl cruelly kills him with the water torture punishment. Rawl then reassures his sister not to worry. He's not doing all this just because of her, though her death is a big reason why he's out for revenge. But it's not the only reason. He doesn't care about justice or any of that. He's just after absolute revenge. And this time, he won't show any mercy.